Guys, when I tell you the reason why some of you are not happy is because, and I'm not saying that like everybody is happy, but comparing your life to people who don't even tell you what they're going through. Some of you are comparing your life to people and they look well dressed, they look healthy, they look happy, they look like they have a lot of money, but they genuinely don't tell you what they go through. Like, you will never know certain things that they go through. You will never know that they spend half of their week in the hospital, half of their week in the doctors. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know if they're going through relationship issues. You don't know the kind of financial issues they're going through. But comparing your life to somebody else is the reason why you are not happy in life. Comparing your life to somebody else, you think the grass is greener on their side. You're not living in your authenticity. And when you're not living in your authenticity, no matter what life is has been given to you, no matter what is thrown at you, even if it's jobs, even if it's love, even if it's luck, even if it's happiness, no matter what is thrown at you, you will always not be grateful because you always think someone else has it better than you. You could be given like a little job to do, and you still, instead of focusing on that little thing that could build into something major, your head is on somebody else and what that person is doing. Well, I don't really want to be I don't really want to work as a retail assistant because that person has a successful YouTube channel. And by that person having a successful YouTube channel, what does that do for me? And I feel like, well, first of all, retail, there's nothing wrong with retail. You gain experience, you get discounts, at least you have a job. But through that retail job, you don't know that could land you with the biggest deal ever. You could meet someone that could change your life there. Retail is fashion. You could like become the next fashion thing where that person has worked 10, 20 years to build their YouTube channel. That retail job could have opened plenty of doors for you, but you're too busy thinking about what someone else is doing. And I think that's what the problem is. It's the comparison. She has a better life than me. She has this. She has that. She doesn't have to do this. And you just genuinely don't know somebody else's emotion. You just genuinely don't know what somebody else is feeling. Like, you may feel like that person's popular. Deep down inside, they may feel alone. You may see that person around people. You may think that person's admired, but you don't know how that person gets treated on the inside. You don't know if that person feels alone, even though they're surrounded by people that you assume to be great. You're comparing your life, but you just don't know the facts. You're comparing your life, but you're just looking at things you're not looking at the bigger picture. You're looking at things from a very small point of view. And I think that's where a lot of misery comes in, because someone is always thinking somebody's life is easier. This person has it easier. This person doesn't have to worry about that. You don't know what that person has to worry about. You don't know internally what that person goes through. Not everything that is going on inside of somebody will be shown on the outside. And that's where a lot of depression and miserable behavior comes from. Constantly comparing your job, comparing your height, comparing your weight, comparing your looks, comparing your friendship, comparing your relationship, comparing your past, comparing, instead of just using all that energy to focus on moving forward and thinking, okay, if I feel blocked in this area, what is the next step? If I'm feeling blocked in this type of way, okay, I know an example of why you shouldn't be miserable in life, because it will block your blessings. For example, okay, you're into film now. I keep getting rejected. Nobody's hiring me. Okay, then go and make a film with your friends. Get your group of. Why are your friends sitting there and you don't have anything you're not doing anything with your friends? Like, you have a group of creative friends and they're just sitting there in your contact. Why you're comparing yourself to somebody who don't have those type of connections around them? They're using their own energy and their time when they have a busy life to be creative and push their creativity is not meant to be hidden. They are using their energy, and you're sitting there with a group of friends gossiping when you could be doing something productive or creating. Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's not always the devil. Sometimes you block your own blessings. You're not as blocked as you think. There's always ways to go about it. This is my obstacle now. If I'm blocked in that direction, I know this is going to work for me and I'm going to use it. I'm going to use this thing that is negative to enhance my life. Okay, if I know that I'm not interested, I don't want to do fashion because I don't like my skin. I don't like, okay, then why don't you start becoming an advocate for somebody who has um skin patches? Like, you don't know how many people you're going to help. If you don't like your eczema, why don't you now become the brand ambassador for females with eczema, and you're going to actually do so well. Like, stop always trying to use excuses. I can't do this because I have eczema. I can't do this because, do you know how many things I could say that I can't do because of? I've got so many more reasons than anybody to say I can't do this, I can't do that. More reasons than anybody. But some people just like to block themselves, and then instead of like finding what works for them, they're busy comparing. But that's that person's path, and if you was probably put in that person's shoes, you won't like it. Even if you was given that person's life, or you actually was put in the position of that person, you might not like it, because you don't understand how people are able to handle things differently. Maybe that person can cope better with their situation than if you was put in that person's shoes. You probably can't cope. You won't cope. You won't be able to cope with abuse. You won't be able to cope with depression. You won't be able to cope with being treated badly. You won't be able to cope with rejection. You won't be able to cope with like years of feeling lack and stuck. Like, you won't be able to cope. So this is what the problem, where the problem comes of constantly comparing somebody else's problems to yours. And I think, you know what, we need to stop comparing, because a lot of people, they haven't grown up like us. They're not like us. They don't know what it's like to be surrounded by villains. A lot of people don't know what it's like to be surrounded by villains. They don't know what it's like to not have support. They don't know what it's like to feel blocked. I can't even. They don't know, like, if now you have a best friend, and if you now have a best friend and you know that best friend did something terrible to you, and then you're explaining it to people, and they're looking at you like, what are you talking about? What are you on about? Like, you're just not a good friend. You're not loyal. They can't understand, because they've never gone through it. They don't understand that. They've never been in that position where loads of people have disapproved of their ideas, loads of people have disapproved of their personality, loads of people have disapproved of them as a person. They don't know what it feels like to be in that position of being rejected, being disapproved, feeling hated, feeling unsupported, feeling not loved. They don't have that situation where, for example, they make a post now and the whole world is like bringing them down or talking about them, like, and even though the idea is good, bringing down their ideas, they don't have that experience. Like, some of them, they haven't been around villains. They don't have villains that constantly don't want them to win. They're not around people that don't want them to win. They're not around people that don't like them. They're not around people that don't want them to succeed secretly, but outwardly will be, do you know how hard it is to be around people that smile in people's face, and people think they're the best people in the world, but secretly they wish you down. They wish you to fail. They wish you to stay stuck in a rut, in a box, and then you have to live like that your whole life, and you have to just, like, you can't express yourself, you can't break free. The only person that you can run to is God. The only person that you have is God. You know how hard it is to be in that position. They haven't had that experience. They can't relate to you because they haven't had that experience where somebody is meant to be close to them, or quote unquote their best friend, or quote unquote, whatever, and then that same person is wishing bad on them. They haven't had that experience. They don't know what it feels like. So, and they constantly just compare, and this is where miserable comes from. This is where a lot of miserable behavior comes from. Comparing.